It would seem as though.
Hello. How are you?
Hello.
Hi. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. Good. Fine. Better.
Better?
Better meaning like I can move, right? My rib was so fucked up for like 2 solid weeks. There's still a little tenderness, but at least I'm not like, I don't feel like I'm broken. I don't feel a little crippled.
That's something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to another week of It Would Seem As Though, the podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and nothing.
Mostly nothing.
I'm Vesta.
I'm Annika. I felt uncertain.
I
felt uncertain.
It's dicey. Maybe you're Annika, maybe not.
No.
Yeah, I actually want to start with a story. It's
Oh.
a very, very short story, and you've already heard it, but it just cracked me up. So the other day, Grace, my daughter, who's 15,
Yeah.
we're driving to school, and we see 10 school buses all heading going the opposite direction that we're
Sure.
going. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of school buses. I see, because obviously it's time for school to start, we see a few here and there, but 10, I was like, wow, it's a convoy of school buses. And she says to me, was school different before? I was like, before
the internet,
what?
Before computers.
It was like before you were in school, before what?
Yeah,
and she said,
honestly.
and I swear to God, she said this, and I did not somehow laugh. And she said, before kids were invented.
I love that though.
Before kids were invented.
Well,
like some crazy scientist in the lab said,
like they weren't
all
real.
these adults are dying out. We need some way to replace them.
Like all
Somebody
the
invent children
that were born naturally were just mini adults. Like none of them were children. But when you text that to me, I was like, how astute. Like, because I was telling Gavin this last night, the whole concept of childhood isn't very old. People didn't have children for them to be young and enjoy being a child.
No.
People had children from the work on the farm or help them in the factory or whatever, or, build ties between families. And so childhood studies, like as a discipline, as like an academic discipline, is less than 100 years old.
Well, and so one of the things I said, so if you pick like a time, is it different than this time?
Yeah.
I can tell you what I know off the top of my head. Because again, we're driving. It's not like I'm going to Google. How was school? And she said, okay, how was it in 1900? Now, it's funny because she usually asks everything about 1980.
Yeah.
Or the 90s.
Yeah.
This is super old. From the 90s?
Yeah.
Shut up.
Shut up, bitch.
So she asked about the and I said, I can tell you in the 1900s, early 1900s, that school was a privilege. Mm-hmm. That most children didn't get to go to school.
Yeah.
Most children were put to work. They either went to work in coal mines or factories or farms, but school was for the rich.
Yep.
You had to have money and privilege to go to school. It wasn't until much later that it was commonplace. And I can tell you that most of my ancestors, it's just not very far back, my grandparents went to school, but they only went to school till like 8th grade.
Yeah.
I think my grandfather went till 6th grade.
Wow.
And my grandmother went till 8th grade, I think.
Nutty.
Because it wasn't important. And it wasn't, it was more important that they go to work.
Yeah. Yep. Isn't that sad?
So, yeah. And
it's fucked up. It's fucked up. Well, and then also the legalization, like the school is mandatory. Like that happened in the United States where like you have to send children to school. Like it's illegal for children to not go to school. But that only I don't even know when that happened.
I don't know, but that's always my argument when they're like, we just don't want to go to school. It's like, sorry about it.
It's illegal.
If you don't go to school and I'm not making you go to school, then I am responsible and they'll come arrest me.
Yeah.
Now, whether that is true in this day and age, I don't know. But I remember watching like those daytime talk shows like Sally, Jesse, whoever, Jenny Jones.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, these parents were arrested for not making their kids go, or for whatever. And I'm like, oh, what?
The fuck? Well, and that's so bonkers.
Where they sent them to school and they maybe didn't show up.
Yeah.
They went out hanging with their friends and whatever.
Well, and how many times I skipped school when I went to McMinnville High School, I remember we needed to be aware of like the truant police, and that was such a new like concept for me.
Yes,
because from YC, first of all, I never skipped school, and second of all, it's such a small town.
And in Yamhill, they barely had regular police, let alone truant police.
Right, and everyone knew everyone, so they'd be all, "Why are you out here? Like, we know you should be, in school, whatever." But like, truant police, what the fuck is that? But yeah. I always wanted to be homeschooled for that specific reason.
When I must have been 19. I hadn't moved to Portland quite yet. And I moved to Portland when I was 19. So I was between 18 and 19. I was out of high school and still living in Carleton.
Boo.
Well, didn't have a job or money. So,
Puts a
whatever.
damper on things.
And I'm walking around, and this person, I was at the post office. I was getting our mail. Because in town in Carleton, you didn't have mail delivered to your house. Mm-mm. You had to go to the post office and get it from a P.O. box.
Which is so cute to me, honestly.
It's so weird.
I know, I love it, though. I loved it.
Like, I can barely go to my front door to get stuff. So.
I know, girl. I'm exhausted even walking there.
I mean, like, yesterday I had a package delivered, and I'm like, Grace, could you go get that? It's all the way out on the step.
Yeah.
I don't want to go. Anyway, I was at the post office, and one of the people who worked at the post office were like, why aren't you in school? And I'm all, because I'm done with school. I graduated.
I've grown.
And they're like,
Sure, you did 14-year-old.
I look 14, but I'm an adult now.
Yeah. Well, talking about what school was like, even like Becky, my birth mother, she went to school in, it's between like Salem and Corvallis, right? But on the way to the coast. Okay. But little small logging community, because my grandpa was a logger for a long time. But the school was one room. So the school for the all of the kids, right? So however old.
So very Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah, very much that. And so I remember thinking that was like crazy cool. But she was so painfully shy that she didn't even, I think she made it through 8th grade, and that was it. Becky never went to high school. Isn't that crazy?
She never went to high school?
Mm-mm.
Huh.
I know.
I did not know that.
She did get her GED, because... Well, it's not like it's that hard. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting because she wasn't born like 100 years ago. You know what I mean?
Close, but not quite 100.
Roughly, yeah.
When we first moved out to the country, I was 6, and we moved out to Yamhill. And if you don't know where Yamhill is, you're not alone.
Yeah.
A little blip on the map that you go through it, and it's like 2 blocks long, and then you're out.
Well, but that's the thing. To us, it's literally nothing, but to everyone else, it's become wine country.
Yes, I know. It's funny to me because when people go, "Oh, where are you from?" and I said, "Well, I grew up in Carleton and Yamhill, so Yamhill County," and they're like, "Ooh, wine country," and I'm like, "Yeah, but when I lived there, it was just the country."
I say the same thing.
There was nothing charming. There was nothing that anybody found interesting. What started to be when I was a little older, probably late teens, early 20s, it was known for also antiquing.
Yeah.
Because there were some pretty cool antique places out there.
But there's not a lot. It's not big. There's not many. It's a fucking small, tiny town,
When I started this story, I had a point.
Yeah. What were we talking about? You were 19?
Right.
Before you were 18.
So I'm 6. I move out there.
Yeah.
At the end of the street. Mm-hmm. It was not a street. The end of
No.
the road that we lived on, which was a gravel road, was a one-room schoolhouse that wasn't like old and dilapidated and whatever, because it wasn't that long before that it had actually been used.
That's crazy.
And it was now being lit. It was a house now.
Okay.
But they hadn't changed any.
That'd be so cute. Yeah, I would love that. Yeah.
Where do you live? In the old schoolhouse?
In the schoolhouse?
Do you know though that one? Okay, in Carleton, there was that big apartment building, big
Carleton Apartments.
the big.
It's white.
Yes.
Yeah.
And right next to it was that big thing where they parked boats.
Sure.
Do you know what I'm talking about? It looked like it was just a big building right next to it.
Okay.
That had windows that you could see into, and there were boats inside.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, the Carleton Apartments used to be the high school.
Yeah. Right.
And then the big building next to it was the gymnasium.
Interesting.
Isn't that funny?
So I barely remember that big building, but I remember the Carleton Apartments because BJ and Joanna lived there. I lived there for a summer.
I didn't know that.
That big white building.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's off Main Street. Yeah.
It's right by the Assembly of God Church. No?
It's
right next to a church. There's so many churches in Carleton.
Because the Assembly of God that I went to was by the grade school.
By the school.
Yeah.
But there was another church right there. It was brick.
Yeah. You're right. Well, again, what Carleton had bars and churches. Yeah.
Right. Did they have a library? Well, kind of. They had a library that was open every other Saturday.
They had a library?
Yeah. It was...
What?
You know where on Main Street there was that little restaurant?
Yeah, the one that's not a French restaurant.
Is it?
Yeah.
Because it was like,
on the
it
park
was a
side?
diner. On Main Street is like there's the pool.
Yes.
And then the little grocery store.
Okay.
And then these buildings here, and there was an actual diner right here. And then there was a building that had what looked like an old theater marquee on it, and it used to be a theater.
Crazy.
Forever ago. Behind it, if you went to the little alley...
Creepy.
Behind it, there was a library that was literally open every other Saturday.
That is so funny to me.
Books, not that important.
Who cares?
But they had 5 or 6 churches.
Yeah.
And several bars.
Yeah.
Because, priorities.
What else are you going to do?
I don't know. What else are you going to do in Carleton? Because
there's nothing.
One of the things that was funny to me is on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. Remember what happened every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock?
No.
The fire alarm.
Oh, I don't remember this.
Maybe it didn't happen when you were there. Because when I was a kid,
I feel like I would remember that.
You would hear the fire alarm go off, and it was so loud that even when we lived outside of town, you would still hear it.
Yeah.
And it was to call in like a little test for all the volunteer fire department, which was most of the fire department.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
But then they would all just get together and like play cards and drink.
Yeah.
It's like, pray to God there's never a real fire.
Here's the thing though, is I think that you say there's nothing charming about Carleton or Yamhill, and I agree with you because I hated it. I hated every minute of it. The older I get, and I think about if we had just been like regular white children who were like, you know what I mean, like not the outcast, you mean? Would we have thought it was charming? Because there's plenty of kids that I went to school with who love it there.
And still live there.
Yes. Half of our fucking family. But like, so I do wonder, because when I moved to LA, I watched, Netflix had just started streaming, because remember, it used to be discs only.
Yes.
And I watched the entirety of the Andy Griffith Show, which was so absolutely precious. And granted, there's like no people of color, and it's all white people and whatever. But how wholesome it was, I was like, is that how people see small town? Because
I think that's the dream.
Yeah.
I think that's what people hope.
Right.
I think people are so charmed by the idea that small town USA is that.
Yeah. And
that you've seen so many episodes of the Andy Griffith Show that you're like, well, it's Mayberry. Everybody knows each other, which is true.
Yeah.
And everybody is like looking out for each other, which isn't
not
true.
No.
And everyone likes each other, which also isn't true.
Yeah, that's impossible. You're not going to live in a place ever and like anybody. You don't even like every person you're actually related to. No. You know what I mean? But I do think that because I have that idealized thought too. Like, wouldn't it be cute to live in a small town that was like Mayberry? Granted, I would need more queer people and black people, and a little more flavor. But I remember thinking, how quaint. That gave me a sense of like nostalgia, but not mine. I didn't grow up in a town like that. I grew up because when I think of small towns in the U.S., I think of racism. I think about bigotry. I think about violence. I don't think about how cute and charming.
I think about how unsafe small towns are for people who are outside of the marginalized people, right? For queer people and people of color and whatever. Because small towns, it's like you become even more of a beacon of like, oh, here's this weird person, here's this different person, whatever.
The deviant.
We don't like different, so we better do something about them, which is how I always felt there. So maybe if I'd have been quote-unquote normal...
Yeah, if you'd been a regular person.
Yeah, but that was too much work.
But you just grew up to be a hack.
I grew up to be a weirdo, and,
honestly.
Can't help that.
I know. But it is, I don't know. I don't even know how it would be possible. You'd have to find... Because I get that there are small towns that are not just white people. A lot of southern small towns are not just white people, right? But if we could just create it, if we could just get a plot of land and build a little town and only have people live there we want, but guess what? That's like discrimination.
Well,
so
it is.
We can't do that.
But what if it was just you bought a plot of land and built houses for just all your friends and family?
Yeah.
And then it's just your cul-de-sac. Yeah, but it would be, what do you call it? When folks all live together.
Commune?
A commune. It would be your commune.
A little community.
And so that would be all right.
Yeah.
You know, I always liked that idea, which is one of the reasons I liked Sister Wives.
Yeah.
I was like, I want a group of people to help me raise my children.
Yeah.
I'm not sleeping with my husband.
Yeah, bitch, I'm not sharing my man with nobody. Do you
but
understand?
if you want to hang out, if my kids are hanging out with you, or I'm hanging out with all the kids one day, great.
Me and husband are taking a vacation, watch my children. Do you know what I mean? I have to work late, we make dinner. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, you have to work early, I'll take all the kids to school. Whatever it is, but they have like, I don't know, 24 children. So maybe not.
Minimum.
I would have to...
So you have to have a school bus.
Do we ever stretch a limousine? Do we ever stretch a party Hummer? Bus? Yeah, exactly. A semi-truck.
You know, on that note, you've ridden in a limousine, yes?
Yeah.
I don't understand
the hype,
the big deal, or the charm.
No.
One, they're a bitch to get in and out of.
Yeah.
And what, you're just sitting in a car with tinted windows.
Yeah.
Is it because you think somebody's looking at it going, ooh, what famous person or what rich person's in this car?
Yeah.
What is the charm?
Well, I think maybe, because I don't get it too, but I do feel the few times I've taken a limo and as an adult, I've been like, oh, she's that girl. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, she's famous. Do you know what I mean? She's important. She's mysterious. We don't know her. But growing up as a youth in Carleton, Uncle Blake owned a limo.
Right, a limo.
He had a little limo service, would go, I don't know how it worked because I was a kid. But sometimes, I remember after a basketball tournament, he came and picked up me and my entire team, right? That was cool, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I was not the cool kid, so having an uncle who had a fucking limo and everyone got to ride in it, I was the cool kid. My other time, when I moved to Los Angeles to go live with RJ, right? Who, actor, doesn't matter, he had money. But I flew into Long Beach and he lived in Hollywood, okay?
So quite a drive.
They're like, his mom, we'll just send you a car. We're going to send you a car. And I said, okay, I'm thinking just like a town car, right?
Sure,
or just like a regular car, because I don't know things. But they sent a limousine to pick me up from Long Beach Airport to drive me back to Hollywood. So I'm in a limousine on the freeway.
To me, that feels bougie.
It was bougie, bitch! And I had 2 suitcases, my entire life in 2 suitcases, and I said, oh girl, that one's for me. That's for me, thank you. Can I, my limo?
Did they stand outside with a sign that said Annika?
Yes, the man had
I love that.
Annika. It was
I
great.
love that.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And you know, Long Beach Airport years ago was a tiny little
It
model.
still is. It's pretty tiny.
Little.
It's a tiny bit bigger now, but it's still tiny.
But sorry, but I think people like them to have like meetings or to be able to converse with you, because you know the seating is facing each other or along the sides. So I think it's to be able, like, if you're in the middle of a meeting, you could continue that meeting while someone else drove, or you could be entertaining guests while someone else drove you to your, So I do get the purpose of it. I don't really give a shit though.
No,
I want like a Lincoln Town Car instead.
Yeah,
that's a couch.
Oh yeah,
it's a sofa on wheels, bitch.
My first time in a limousine was, I was 19.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Tracy was working as a limo driver at that moment.
I fucking love it.
And she came to the gas station where I worked and picked me up in a limo. And
so
everybody's looking like, what? And I go, oh, that's my ride.
Oh, who the fuck is that? Yeah.
But when I was volunteering at the elementary school, we did this fundraiser where the kids won a pizza party, but they were taken to the pizza party in a limousine. And it was one of those really super big ones that, because a whole bunch of kids got
like the stretch limo.
Yeah, and it had all these lights that went around the inside. So it was cute, but it was like, for me, maybe for, kids is fine. But for me specifically, getting in and out of it was kind of a bitch.
Well, because it's low.
What I would rather have, party bus.
Oh, girl, same.
Because a party bus, you just walk up the little stairs, and then you have all the seats, and you probably have a pole if you need one.
Yeah, well, probably several. But here's the thing: party bus too is like we could stand, right? Mm-hmm. It's not the normal size of a car that's been, so you're sitting fine in a limo, but if there's too many people, instantly I'm like, get out, because there's too many of you,
Right.
I'm claustrophobic and I hate it.
There's so many of you.
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah. But limos are fine. Again, I don't really think they're pertinent anymore, just because everything can be done virtually.
All right, so one year,
tell me,
I was pretty young. I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
I had gone to Coronation in Tacoma, I think. I want to say Tacoma.
I'd rather be in a coma than
than
Tacoma.
Yeah. Right. And I was out with a whole bunch of my friends, and one of the people from there said, hey, we're going to go to breakfast and then go back to their house and use the pool and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, okay. And somehow along the way, we picked up this person who was not part of the group, I think he was, I don't remember, some cute young guy, and it was a group of drag queens. Of course, they're like, oh, cute young guy wants to be part of it.
Come on in.
Well, so we went to breakfast, and he didn't order any food. Turns out he was probably broke, but didn't say that. And then when everybody's like looking like, are you going to eat that? Are you going to eat that? And it was like eating everybody else's food. I was like, oh, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
And whatever. And then we went to the pool and swam for a while, and that was also weird. It's like none of us had swimming things because we weren't planning on going. You know, I didn't pack for a swimming party. All I think I had like shorts and maybe a t-shirt or something. I don't remember. Some people went in sans clothes or whatever.
Yeah.
But he, the whole time, was just annoying because it was like, this kid who knew none of us.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, cute kid. But we were riding around in a limousine because the person who we were hanging with, they drove a limousine for a living.
I love that.
Well, when we got to his stop, one of the queens, who I will not mention by name, put her big old size 13 foot in the middle of his ass and pushed him out the door.
Oh my God.
We've had enough of you. Bye.
Is that queen still living?
Yes.
Okay, then we should not say.
No, I will not mention her name.
Yeah.
But it was mean, but funny.
You know, mean sometimes is necessary.
Sometimes.
I think people sometimes get hung up on the fact that, oh, they were mean. Okay, well, what did you do? Or I don't think people often are just mean to be mean. There are those people. Yeah. I know them. But I think mean is often necessary. Girl, I can tell you how many situations that I feel like maybe being mean saved my life. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe,
Maybe telling that boy to fuck off. You know what I mean? Maybe just being snotty and rude and emasculating.
Sure.
Maybe that saved me.
Speaking of mean, and this wasn't even on my idea for stories or talking today or talking points, I was watching this thing about one of the guys who worked for Disney who was an animator. And he specifically worked on the film
The Great Mouse Detective?
No.
God damn it. I'm so sorry. Sorry. We're being robbed. No, Kitty Girl is a little bitch, and she's looking at me right now. She has a little bowl. She knocked it off the counter because she thinks that she deserves more. And here's another thing. She has a bowl full of dry food right next to it.
And she's all, but I don't want that.
I don't like that.
For the second time now, has pushed the bowl off onto the floor.
She's looking at it like, what?
Whichever one movie has Madam Mim. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, the guy who did the animation of that, Madam Mim is a monster. Mm-hmm. She's awful. And I'm trying to remember. I'm sorry, I can't remember. Anyway, it might be what is it called? The Rescuers.
Oh, okay.
I think maybe she's in The Rescuers. Anyway, and I could be wrong, and whatever. But I wasn't planning on talking to this, so I didn't do any research or whatever. But the guy who animated her patterned her after his ex-wife.
I love that.
Because he said his ex-wife was a monster. All the way down to like pulling off her fake eyelashes, and the whole thing is when she undoes the makeup, she's a total hag.
Yeah.
It was like, so you patterned this hag after your ex-wife, and people knew.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of hilarious. Listen, I want to share with you something I learned this week, which you probably already know.
Okay, tell me.
Because, we've talked about ASMR.
Yeah.
And I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, which is The Bald and the Beautiful with Katya and Trixie.
Yeah. And
Katya was saying how when she was young, something had happened where it was just that like vibration that made her like whole body tingle. And then she said that another time her math teacher was sitting and talking to her, explaining something, but because he was talking quietly, because there was a whole, and just had this low kind of rumbly voice that it was like kind of droning, it again gave her like tingles from the top of her head down.
Yeah.
And she was saying how that's ASMR, and I was like, I thought ASMR was actually what you do, not the response to what you do. Because ASMR, you hear it all the time. People are making ASMR recordings and blah, 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 web podcasts and things where you make pleasant noises or whatever. Just different sounds.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the whole act of doing, and because it's the sensation that you get from doing this type of
right. ASMR is actually the sensation. Yeah. It's autonomous sensory meridian response. It's a tingling sensation that usually begins in the scalp and moves down the back and the neck and the upper spine. A pleasant form of paresthesia. Never heard that word before. It has been compared with auditory tactile synesthesia, which these words don't help me.
Auditory tactile means like touch and sound.
Yeah,
that's like your.
But but for the last few years, I've been seeing ASMR everywhere.
Yeah,
and I thought that was what the act of doing the thing was called, not what it's supposed to trigger. The response is supposed to trigger. It's like, oh,
yeah,
now I know. I just learned something. I'm 100 years old and I learned something new.
Old dogs can learn new
I
tricks.
know, it is weird, but it is true.
9 times out of 10, I have a problem with ASMR. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Some of it I'm fine with, but because there are other things we've talked about, like at the movie theater, the clinking of the ice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we talked about that recently.
And so that can give me that. But there's some ASMR that makes me feel gross. It just makes me feel, lack of a better word, icky. Like, I just feel like it's grimy, like I feel gross, I feel dirty. Yeah, lots of ASMR makes me feel like I shouldn't be listening to it. I don't know why.
Okay.
I don't know what it is about it. It just isn't... Because I understand, I've had that feeling. The tingling and the moving down for several, for different things in my life without knowing a name for it. But, there are some things people do it, and the tapping and the mouth noises. It's awful.
Yeah, well, mouth noises often make me want to gag.
Yeah.
Depending on what they are.
Yeah.
The sounds, certain sounds when people eat.
Yep.
Certain sounds when people talk, when they have like a really dry or an overly wet mouth.
Yep.
And it's like, could you do something about that? Or it sounds like they need to clear their throat.
Oh! Okay, so it's so funny you said that because, I watched this thing called Critical Role.
Yes.
Critical Role is a group of voice actors who play D&D, for all of you who don't know. And since they're voice actors and they're actors and they're creatives, it's brilliant, it's fun, whatever. But there's one guy on it, and I love him. I love everyone who's on it. But there's this one guy, his name is Taliesin Jaffe is his real name. But often it sounds like he needs to clear his throat. And it is so bothersome to me that I'm like, Taliesin, you're so good, but this is so bothersome.
But just cough.
Just, that's it. That's all you need to do.
And then we'll all be good, and I can go on with my day, and I can then focus on what you're saying,
because then
as opposed to how you sound.
One eye just starts to shut slowly.
You're just
it's so cringe.
putting your hands over your ears.
Yep.
So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Someone else might find that interesting.
ASMR.
Also, something that I saw on the news, and then I did a little research. So, this woman, her name was Cecilia Gentili. Do you know about her? She was a trans activist.
Okay, no.
She was also made a guest appearance on Pose. She was on Pose. She was the woman who was working for the mafia and got Dominique Jackson. What's her character's name?
Electra.
Electra got her in with them.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So she died.
Oh, wow.
And her funeral was held was it St. Patrick's?
Wow, okay.
I want to say it's St. Patrick's. I have it right here in front of me, so I know it's got to be here. It was St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York.
Okay.
They allowed them to have the funeral there, which was shocking because it's a big Catholic
and
thing.
Queer.
However, in the middle of her funeral, they came in and shut it down and made them all leave.
Ugh.
Because they, somewhere in there, figured out who and what she was. Because it's like, because she was this trans woman. And one of the people who got up to speak said in Spanish, and so I'm not going to even try, they referred to her as the mother of the horrors.
Oh.
And that kind of, I guess, was the last straw for these folks. And the priests came in and said, y'all got to go. Mm-hmm. We're done. You got to get out. And so this group of activists came and protested and demanded an apology from the archdiocese. Mm-hmm. Because, they desecrated this woman's funeral.
Yeah.
Because they were like, well, she's queer. Get out. And they then went on to, of course, they're not going to apologize.
No.
They were saying, this was an abomination. These people should have never been in their church, and they certainly had no business. It's like they said they tricked us Well, they didn't trick you. They didn't
Wow,
say, hey,
what?
this lady that we're going to do a funeral for, you need to know her whole life story. Does that ever happen with anybody else? It's like,
No.
Bob here died. We're going to do a funeral. Was
He's-
Bob a good Catholic? Was
Yeah.
he straight?
Yeah,
Did he have a family? I need to know.
Yeah. Also, the whole "she tricked us" or "they tricked us" kind of thing is such an awful trope to use against trans people. To be like, "Oh, well, you're just hiding who you are. You're hiding the fact that you aren't who you say you are." It's so ugly and stupid that I'm. I told you I went to church on Christmas Eve.
Yes.
And I went to a Catholic church. I went to the Catholic church that my man's father is a deacon at. And you all have heard me talk about religion. I am no way a fan of it. But I went there and there were a lot of things that I was proud of. And I mentioned this before on the podcast, but the fact that they made it a point to keep mentioning how everybody, and mentioned trans people, queer people, drunks, addicts, whatever, like went on and on and on about all the people who are welcome. And it's literally everyone. And like the fact they mentioned Palestine and whatever. But it's not shocking to me, but having that like such a nice experience, and then hearing like the vitriol coming from a Catholic church.
Well, after they said they wanted an apology, the cardinal of whatever said, "I applaud the priest who made a quick decision with the behavior like this. We can't do a mass." Dolan said, "We'll do the liturgy of the word, which is the readings and the sermon and the prayers, the petition and the Our Father, and then we'll stop. The mass is not going to go on. Bravo for the cathedral people who knew nothing about this that was coming up." And then, of course, then they stopped it, and it got worse with the eulogies, which were irreverent and disrespectful. They were, I suppose, that maybe that's how you saw them, but a trans queer icon who is being referred to as the mother of the whores, none of us would take offense at that. No. So disrespectful in your eyes because those words are disrespectful to you. It's like when we use curse words that other people find upsetting or whatever. It's like, that's upsetting to you. It's not, when I call you a bitch or whatever, I'm not being disrespectful. I say it with love and whatever. And so it's like, why would you decide you needed to get into the middle of this and be like, well, they were being irreverent, they were being disrespectful?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why are you even there? I get that you probably were part of the service or whatever, but mind your business.
But that's the whole thing
shut it down. Why would you shut it down?
A Catholic service, though, is it's not just the people talking; it's the people who work at the church.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole part of Catholic rite is the people who are ordained to do it have to do it, right?
Yeah.
So I feel conflicted only because they shouldn't have shut it down. They should have left them alone. They should let them do it. And it doesn't matter if she was trans. And they're literally not backpedaling. They're just doubling down. That's the word.
Yeah.
And it's ugly, and I think that's shitty. I can't believe they allowed Satan to make a home in their heart like that. But what I will say is, I don't know. I'm a highly disrespectful person, and I will tell you...
What?
Yeah. But I will tell you that I don't know. I wouldn't go, even if that's what she was known as, I don't think I would refer to her as the mother of whores in a pulpit, in a Catholic church, a big Catholic church in New York City, or whatever you said, while there were clergy there. I just think, like, time and place, and yes, this is a funeral, but then have something after the fact where it's...
Maybe at the memorial.
Yeah, because I just think time and place. I think if you are... the church is allowing you to do this... I think there are lines. There's a lot of gray area.
Okay.
Sometimes I feel like you have to dance to their tune to get what you want, right?
Well,
and
sure.
I think if you want to use their...
Yeah, when you put it that way, that makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like if you want to use their church, then you have to play by their rules.
All right. Your cat is completely fucking nuts. So I just look, and the cat looks... You know those old posters with the cat who's hanging from a tree branch that says, "Hang in there, baby"? The cat was just hanging off the back of the chair, looking like, what the hell is happening? I can't get up.
But so angry.
The fact that she's 20 pounds of cat, of course she can't get up by your claws. You cannot do a chin-up, fatty.
Oh, God, that was so funny.
Have you ever done a chin-up?
Girl, maybe. Like, almost. I used to be
almost.
I used to be a little stronger.
I almost did a chin-up once.
I used to be a little stronger than I am now. But maybe one or two in my life.
I never did that. I never climbed the rope in gym.
Well, with an ass like that, girl, I'm sure not.
No.
I know. Well, I never had to climb a rope. That was outdated when I was younger.
Was it? I never understood. Okay, I realize we're taking a big jump here from the church and a funeral of a trans icon to whatever. When I was a kid, once a year you had to do this stupid
fitness test, right?
Yeah, and it was like you have to do a pull-up or a chin-up. They're the same thing.
Just one.
You had to do as many as you can do, and for me that was 0.
Yeah.
You had to do push-ups. Again, 0. Jumping jack, you had, and I could do some of them.
Yeah.
But anything where I was supposed to lift my own weight was not going to happen.
Upper
what
body
was
strength?
I? Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, who
no,
the fuck
I'm
do you
sorry.
think that is?
I can't lift this. I was a fat kid.
Yeah.
I wasn't a strong fat kid. I was never trying to lift my own ass up off the floor.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I always was like, how is this a thing? Was the rope. Because the rope, you had to climb this rope.
Yeah.
First of all, climb your rope. That's stupid. And you would climb it as high as you could, which was the ceiling of the gymnasium, which you know is 2 stories high. So it's about 20 feet.
Yeah.
What? You know, if you fall from that height onto those little thin gymnasium mats.
Put a little mat down. You'll be fine.
There's a little mat.
You'll be fine.
No.
No, honestly,
I remember one of the boys who was always doing some kind of shenanigans. Got all the way to the top and thought it would be really funny to just slide all the way back down.
Oh, fuck.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's a big-ass rope with you. And he had the worst rope burns on his hands.
I'm sure.
And it's like, so, was that hilarious?
No.
What, did you really think that was going to be that funny? Not funny.
No. I learned how to climb a rope as an adult, though. Yeah, because I knew people, but like also Astra knows how to climb a rope and told me how to climb a rope, and it's basically like wrapping your foot around the rope to create tension to be able to like step into it, right, and then being able to move your way.
Okay.
It's very confusing, but I don't understand why you have to teach children to do this just in case they need to crawl out of a burning building, or you know,
right.
they're
or they actually run into Rapunzel and need to climb down her hair.
Yeah, bitch, are you planning on finding a tower in the woods? Like, I'm confused.
Maybe.
Yeah, so I don't think it's important for children to learn how to climb a rope. If they know how, cool.
I remember when we first started foster care.
Yeah.
And they were like, all right, you have to put up a fire escape plan. Like a floor plan.
Yeah. These windows, they open. Jump.
Yeah. Walk out the front door, preferably. If the door's on fire, go out the back door.
Right, honestly.
And then somebody came here and so our house, the bedrooms are all upstairs. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have bedrooms on the main floor. We all are upstairs. And they were like, oh, you need to get a ladder. I need to get a ladder? And she's like, you have to have a rope ladder that you can put out your window. A rope ladder. Have you seen me? First of all, what kind of rope's going to hold my fat ass going out? And I'm just going to open the window and probably fall out anyway and then be dead because I'm going to land on the concrete.
It's like a comedy of errors, girl.
Right?
I'm sorry.
So here I am climbing down a little flimsy rope ladder, which is swinging in the breeze, which will probably be on fire by the time I get even out the window. And I was like, this is not going to happen.
No, ma'am.
And I was like, all ladders have a weight limit.
Sure.
You know? And most of them are less than what I weigh.
Sure.
And a rope ladder, really? You know, it's like,
so
what do you think that rope ladder's made of that is going to hold my ass?
What's the tensile strength of that rope?
Right. No, I would probably just soak myself real good in the shower and then try to make it through the flames.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not going out the window, though. Because that's certain death.
Yep. Cloth head to toe, soaked in water, running.
Yeah. Well,
you're going to sit on your butt and you're going to slide down the stairs. That's quick, girl.
Open the front door.
You're going to go Jamaican bobsledding.
I'm going to be like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone.
Yep.
Open the front door.
Yep.
I'm going to slide way out off the porch and onto the grass.
Girl, you might get a little bumps, little bruises, maybe a concussion. That's better than burning alive.
My luck. It would stop on the doorstep and I would like flip out or just burn.
Projectile.
You know, whatever.
You just projectile out. Oh! This cat.
Your cat is psychotic.
I know.
She's crazy.
I know.
So, away from gym stuff.
Sorry.
That's all right. Well, we're just going everywhere today because why? Tangents or topics.
Yeah.
Eurovision is happening.
Yeah.
And did you...
You keep talking. Hold on.
I don't know if you heard, but one of the people trying to be the representative for Iceland,
Yeah.
his name is Bashar Murad,
Okay.
and he's from Palestine.
Okay.
And so the people who put on Eurovision every year
Yeah.
are a little nervous, a little concerned
Yeah.
that because of the war in Israel,
Yeah.
the genocide in Israel, that if he is chosen, if they use him as the representative from Iceland, that they will have big trouble
In Little China.
in Little China, right? Because
I want you to know
the hate,
something.
there's so much hate for
Everyone, part of that conversation about Israel is that it's like in the Middle East, right? Like it's in the Middle East. So riddle me why
Okay, I'll try.
is Israel they go to Eurovision?
Yes.
Why? Why are they the only Middle Eastern country to go to Eurovision?
I don't know, but one of the winners who I'm obsessed with was from Israel.
But why does Israel?
Well, I know, because they're not part of Europe.
Yeah, they're not Europe, so it doesn't make any sense to me. But then, so now we're saying that
So
we're
a
just
solid point.
So we're just transplanting white Europeans to the Middle East and calling it Europe? But that's not it. That's not the tea, honey. The math isn't mathing, boo boo. Why isn't I don't know. Why aren't any other countries from the Middle East there? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's weird to me that, and I'm not saying that this guy should or shouldn't perform. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's not from Iceland. He's
Yeah.
from Jerusalem.
No.
But he lives in Iceland now, and he wants to be the representative of Iceland. I in my crazy head,
Yeah.
I would think to represent Iceland,
Yeah.
you should be from
Well,
Iceland.
yes and no. I think, but here's the thing.
If he lives there full time now, I think that's fine. But if
Yeah.
you're visiting or
Yeah. I think you're right. But how many times do people in sports teams get traded?
Oh, yeah.
And they're not from there, but they play for them.
And in history of this, in 2021, Flo Rida was in Eurovision representing San Marino.
Shut the fuck up. That's so funny.
I don't know what year this was.
Oh yeah. Then this Palestinian.
1988, Celine Dion represented Switzerland.
Yeah, girl. So this one was then yes.
She's from Canada.
She can. But I do think this Palestinian should then. I think it's up to Iceland, right? If Iceland decides they want this person to be their champion or whatever it is, right? Their pick, I think that's their choice, and I think it's a good idea. And why not shake some shit up? There's a singer, I don't know what her name is. Can't remember, but she's a beautiful, beautiful girl. She sings in Arabic, and she's like a pop star, a Palestinian pop star, essentially. And she sang at... It wasn't that long, a few months ago, an Egyptian... It was in Egypt. It was a huge conference or festival. She sang in Arabic while... It was right after October 7th. After all this bombing and shit. And it's so heart-wrenching. But she doesn't live currently in Palestine. Because how... You know what I mean? She wouldn't be able to perform. So, I don't know. I think that we should shake it up. I think we should... I don't know. More people should talk about it. But I know...
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that part. It's just weird to me that this guy from Jerusalem will be... Yeah. Representing Iceland.
I think if Iceland chooses him, that's great.
But here's the other twist.
Tell me.
For him to perform at Eurovision, he has to be able to perform his song
in Icelandic. Yeah. Well, does he know Icelandic?
I would hope.
So
I guess if you're going to join the competition, yes. you would have already learned.
I'm assuming that he knows it to even be in the running, right?
I would think so.
Because there's this movie called... Is it called Eurovision? Maybe, yeah, with Rachel McAdams.
Yes, yeah.
The song she sings at their Eurovision moment is partially in English. No. Doesn't it, the song you're entering have to be in English? You're not...
when you sing it at the contest?
Yeah.
At the big... But when you do it for your own wherever country you're
Okay.
representing, you have to sing in their language.
Okay.
When you get to
It has to be
Eurovision,
English.
it has to be. Because when ABBA, that's how they got started, was winning Eurovision.
Okay.
And they sang Waterloo, but they sang it in
Swedish,
Swedish.
yeah.
And then at the competition, they sang it in English.
Okay, because that's what happened. In the movie, Rachel McAdams gets disqualified because she starts singing in English, and then she sings in Icelandic, and everyone in Iceland freaks out because it's such a big deal. On the main
Right.
stage, she's singing in Icelandic. Anyway, yeah, I think that's cool. I hope there's more Palestinian representation. And if Iceland chooses this Palestinian man who lives there to be their, chosen to go into this contest, I think that's cool. Again, if Celine Dion and fucking Flo Rida could do it for places they don't even live.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
So it says to compete, he had to learn the song in Icelandic. So he's already done that.
Okay.
Something he worked very hard to get right. He sang the song Wild West,
Okay.
which they have to be original songs as well,
Okay.
which he performs in a white suit with a broken heart emoji on his chest, about following your dreams and not letting physical or imaginary borders confine you or define you. He said, I was just walking the streets of Jerusalem and listening to the song on repeat and making sure I nailed all the pronunciation.
Wow.
It is a difficult language, but it's also a very beautiful one.
Wow.
He said, he understands why people might think his decision to enter is political, but he insisted it wasn't, because he's telling his personal story and personal experience, and it just happens to be politicized.
Yeah.
Yeah, very right now.
Well,
very
and here's
politicized.
the thing, too, is existing as a Palestinian is the political thing. Do you know what I mean? At
Right,
this
just
point,
being alive.
Yeah, just being alive. Well, and there are places like Canada where if you're moving there or you're immigrating, you're a natural born citizen, or where it asks where you're a citizen of, where you were born, Palestine isn't even an option.
What?
You're stateless.
What?
Yes, Palestine, to be country of origin, is not an option. So then people are stateless because it's Israel.
Oh,
But these people
I
are-
did not know that.
And they changed it because I don't remember what it was. It just happened recently. But yeah, in Canada, Palestine isn't even on the choice of countries to say that you're from. Which is just gross. I don't know. It's too much. Do you want to know something I found out that I think is really interesting and very telling? Israel is a lot of people who moved to the Middle East. A lot of these people who moved there are a lot of them of European descent.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to white people when they in the desert? White people who have less melanin, who aren't used to living in a desert, let's say most Israelis,
Right.
their rate of skin cancer is astronomical to the neighboring nations. So
That would make sense.
Palestinians have skin cancer. Melanoma, specifically from the sun, very little. Israelis, it's skyrocketing because, well, they're white people in the Middle East being oh, this is my land.
Interesting.
Look, I'm from here. Yeah. You want to know another thing I found interesting that I also just learned?
Yeah.
Is that Israel was created after World War II, right? Because what do you do with all the Jewish people who are just... And this is why they wanted to create an Israel. Europe didn't want all the Jewish people to immigrate into Europe. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So it was the quote-unquote Jewish problem. So what do? We create the land for the chosen.
Oh.
So none of these quote-unquote people who don't deserve to live here come to Europe. Now we have a place for them, and now we have a standing in the Middle East, right?
Oh.
Because
I had no idea.
yeah, because Israel is predominantly white. Yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah, and quite racist, right? Even not just against Palestinians, but black Israelis, black Jewish people. They're, and there are different types of Jewish people. They're not mostly white, or they're not predominantly white. That's crazy. But yeah, I just think those things are interesting. Europe was all,
Right.
no, go live in the Middle East.
Right, we don't want you here.
And then they live in the Middle East, and now their skin cancer, percentages
Wild.
are so insane. And I'm well, if that's not proof of anything, you know what I
It's
mean?
certainly proof that Jesus wasn't white.
Yeah.
Some white man with blue eyes and whatever. It's that's so
Girl,
crazy.
I
to me.
know. So I just think those things are really interesting. It's just science showing
Right.
you.
So you were going to tell a story about the
Was
little
it the
girl. Yeah.
Ugh, okay.
Speaking of Palestine.
Yeah. It's all I think about. It's been going on for months. A lot is happening. A lot has happened. It's really ugly. But, you know, when there is aid that is able to get into the Gaza Strip, there's like a central point and people come to you, right? Like they'll come for their flour or whatever the aid is, right? And that's Palestinians with bowls, begging, whatever. Well, there was a video, you know, in social media. We see it everywhere now. And I've seen horrific things that are happening in Palestine. And this was just heartbreaking. This little girl was approaching, and wherever it is, right? The aid tent. And a man says, I'm so sorry, like, we don't have any more. We don't have any aid today. And she's little, 4 or 5, little girl wearing, like, sweats and a t-shirt, and it's winter, you know? And the look on her face wasn't even just, like, devastation or, like, her being upset. It was just kind of, like, acceptance. Like, she didn't really think there was going to be aid. She didn't really think she was going to eat, you know? And then on social media, to be able to, scroll 2 videos down and see, and this isn't bad, but seeing parents tell their kids in America, like, oh, we're going to go to Disneyland, or, you know, hanging out with their kids, or teaching their kids to cook, or going to their games, or, and this little girl may not even have one parent, may not have any living relatives, probably doesn't even have...
The fact that she was at this tent alone says to me she probably doesn't.
Right, and she doesn't have...
Or she's trying to care for her parent because they've already been hurt, or they've been whatever, and so she's... the one able to go get aid.
This little girl getting aid, learning to cook, not because it's fun or teaching a skill, but because of necessity. This little girl who will never be able to leave, never even think of Disneyland. This little girl who doesn't probably have any toys or anything of comfort. And I often think about, when that happened, I thought about your son. And your son who, every time he sleeps over, brings the things that bring him comfort that he goes to bed with, right?
Yes.
And I think about that little girl and how she has nothing. And how she has nothing, and she's by herself. And I see all these little children in America who, there's a huge problem here too. There are a lot of homeless children. There are a lot of children in foster care, children who need homes. But seeing this little girl rubble around her, and
that's
just
heartbreaking. It
is devastating. And it just makes me think, like, we are only privileged by happenstance.
Yeah.
We grew up here. We were born... The little soul that was put into your body and my body just happened to be born in the United States. And we're fortunate. But that little girl, like, she didn't, you look at her and you think she's a terrorist. You look at her and you think she's Hamas. You look at her and think she's the bad guy. Like, so it's devastating. And, like, I don't want to center myself, and I don't want to think, like, this is helping me figure out who I am. But, like, it's so sad. It is so sad. And, like, the world just fucking carries on. And there's, like, and the fact that people are starving to death, like, they just can't get aid, you know?
Yeah.
And then
and the fact that there were people keeping trucks from getting into Palestine to give them aid.
Yeah.
It's like, so you're going to bomb them and then starve them out or whatever to not even... So that makes you inhuman.
Well, and to add insult to injury... Palestinians in the Gaza Strip were surviving on animal feed because food couldn't get in. So they were, like, mashing animal feed with whatever water they could, creating, like, things to eat.
Ugh.
And then they were starving because they couldn't, and currently are starving because they couldn't get enough animal feed to survive. If the parallels aren't there from what happened during the Holocaust, like, I just don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know how at this point people aren't drawing similarities, aren't connecting the dots, and I don't know how we see what we see and people still are okay with it.
Because everybody here, and maybe around the world, I don't know, is so, like, moving on to the next thing. It's like, well, this was a hot button issue for 2 weeks, and then that's all that our attention span could do, because we have to get back to scrolling on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, and get back to whatever we're doing in our lives. And so, you know, sorry about your life.
Yeah.
That sucks. And wait, where are you from? What's happening?
Exactly.
You know, it's like with the Ukraine.
Yep.
When that all started, everybody was horrified, everybody's mad, everybody's up in arms. And 2 weeks later, people are like, oh, that's still happening? What? Because we don't see anything about it after it's, you know, when it's no longer fresh news.
Yeah.
What we hear about every day is the next crazy shit that Trump says, or the things about all of the trials with him. Yeah. I swear to God, the only thing I have heard on most news kind of things is whatever crazy fucking thing that the Orange Menace is doing. Yeah. It's like, well, he went to a rally and rambled, or he did this, or he...
And was incoherent. Like, honestly, who cares?
But when wasn't he incoherent? This is not news.
No, and I feel like, oh my God, why are we focusing on it? And I'm going to say something. We talked about this in the car, too. Kamala Harris being like, we need a ceasefire. And I was just telling you that I think it's very coincidental that right before Ramadan, a holy month for Islamic people, that they are going to now have a 6-week ceasefire. And like, why a 6-week one? Why not permanent? Why now? Right? And it feels like I told you in the car, they're trying to garner the vote of the Arab Americans and the Muslim Americans because election year, right?
Yeah.
But I want you to know that do what you want. Say you want that, but this generation is not falling for it. The fact that there are still hundreds of thousands of people protesting in major cities across the United States and globally still for Palestine. Like, the fact that the popular vote or the popular opinion of Israel has dropped strictly because of the war crimes they've committed, like, it's crazy to me. So the politicians are always going to do what they can to... make more money, to gain more wealth, whatever it is, more power. But at this point, no one believes that. They could be like, people I think will be blinded because she said ceasefire, right? But let's keep it real. She said 6 weeks. Let's keep it real. What happens after 6 weeks? They start bombing again?
Right.
And what's going to happen in 6 weeks? Do you know what I mean?
I do, because that was my whole confusion. That's why I asked you, because you're more politically aware and savvy than I am. Because I saw her speech, and I saw her speaking passionately for Palestinian people. Mm-hmm. But I kept coming back to but 6 weeks? Mm-hmm. Why aren't you calling for this to end? Why aren't you calling for reparations? Why aren't you calling for things to be made whole again? So it's like, yes, put in a plan where Palestinians and Jewish folk have their own place, but it can't be where one's controlling the other.
No.
Where one is, starving the other out, where one is like, we're going to eventually win this and you'll all be either dead or gone and we're going to take what you have too. And I get that that's the way of the world. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, we want what you have and we're willing to kill you for it.
Yep.
But if you're calling for a ceasefire, back it up and be like, this needs to end. No. We will no longer do trade with you. Mm-mm. We will no longer give you a dime in aid. We will do nothing for you until you knock this shit off.
Well, and that's what I would encourage people. Like, listen to their words, but then watch their actions. They're going to say, ceasefire, 6 weeks, ceasefire. We need, aid. Get them humanitarian aid, a humanitarian ceasefire. But what is their dollar doing?
Right.
They're still shipping money, supplies to Israel to then kill Palestinians. Like, so I don't care. I think it's bullshit, and I think that it's a ploy. But the Americans at this point, bitch, we had Trump for a president. We've watched Biden fumble a bunch of shit and can't even think coherently because he's an old fucking man. You know what I mean? Like, it's all... And I've said it once and I said it again. Let Trump win, bitch. Like, let him win. Do you know what I mean? Like, Trump stressed me the fuck out. But I'll survive Trump. Do you know what I mean? I'll survive him again. I don't care. Palestinians are not going to survive Israel. Whoever's in charge, I know, is going to, continue to bomb Palestine. But, like, I've survived Trump. I have more freedom here. I have more ability. I have more whatever. Palestinians don't have that. So,
right.
I will, and I know this is crazy, but I probably will be one of those people, I'm not voting for Joe Biden. I fucking can't,
Right.
So
and understandably,
I have to do more research. I have to figure it out. But like, I can't be like, hey, Genocide Joe. You know what I mean? Like, hey, okay, I'll vote for you. Like, quit bombing.
You did this one thing that I really hate.
Yeah.
Where you helped lots of people die, but beyond that,
right.
But the other thing, and I just heard this week, that I heard it come from his lips, was Trump saying that basically he wanted to create camps for the homeless.
Right.
And it's like, how that's going to end up, yeah? That's going to be like internment camps.
Yeah.
We're going to round up the homeless and take them to this place, and it's like, you're not helping. If you're like, I want to create big centers where, they can get aid, they can get clothing, they can get food, they can get, have a bed.
Yeah.
Because right down the street from us, there's that giant Walmart superstore that closed.
Yeah.
Turn that into a homeless shelter.
Yeah. Lloyd Center.
Lloyd Center, which
Bitch.
which they've talked about.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's huge. You
Yeah.
could house a couple thousand people,
Probably.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
You know, but even just like this building is just sitting there empty.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be, I don't think, that difficult to make it into some kind of shelter.
No.
There's bathrooms.
Yeah.
There's, running water. I'm sure there must be a kitchen in there somewhere.
Yeah, employee
kitchen,
sure.
But even if there's not,
it's not that hard.
it's not outside.
No.
Yeah. It's an empty building where you could be putting people to just not be outside in this awful weather.
Yes.
I know. And whatever.
I know. Yeah, so it's just, I just think everything is so disappointing, you know? And I feel like people want to say shit like, well, don't be a single issue voter. But if the single issue is genocide...
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Issue.
Like, it's not like, oh, they're raising taxes or whatever, which I know also a big deal. But my single issue is genocide, y'all. I'm sorry, if that's not a red line for people, then I don't know what is. Like, right. I really don't know. So, anyway, I think that's all I have to say to any of you people.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Wow.
Are we done?
We are.
Oh, okay, cool.
We are. We're done. We need to get out of here.
Yeah,
I need to, our studio time's almost up. They're probably going to send in the next act.
What do you mean we own our studio?
Oh, yeah.
We're very filthy rich.
Yeah. Filthy.
Yep.
But rich?
We stop there.
We're filthy. That would be nice.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
I'm going to end on this little segment here, which is not long ago, Parker came home from school and said to me, "My friends think that we're rich."
Oh,
like, what?
Oh my God!
What? How?
Why?
And he said, "Well, because you drive a fancy car, I drive a Kia."
But so, you get a new one.
It's only like a year old or 2 years old or whatever it is now, and I'm like, but it's not fancy. It's just a Kia.
It's just
new.
Not
like, it's just new, right? And he has a computer and a tablet and an Xbox and whatever. And I was like, well, when I was a kid, as we've discussed many times, I would have thought that's rich.
Yeah. Annika, as a little person right now looking at the life that you have, you're rich, girl. You are rich. And your children are rich.
But when I said to him, I go, yeah, we're not rich.
No.
We are surviving, and we are, I would say we're maybe lower middle class.
Comfortable-ish.
We're okay. Yeah. But I just thought that was funny. It's like, my friends think we're rich. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I mean, wireless earbuds. He's right. Like a smartwatch, a tablet, a computer, every game system. Like rich.
Yeah, which is why it was really hard for me to have any sympathy for them the 3 days we didn't have the internet, and they were just like dying.
What I ain't gonna do? Shut the fluff up.
It's like you have all these game systems, none of which require the internet to run. No. So, and you have hundreds of movies. So shut up.
Yeah.
Go find something to do. Yeah. And it did force me to become that parent who's like, well, in my day.
Back in my day, after I walked home from school in the snow barefoot or whatever. Yeah.
5 miles.
Yeah,
uphill.
Both ways. Uphill both ways.
It was somehow uphill both ways. I don't know how that's even possible, but it was.
It was.
Because the road going out of town was uphill.
Uh-huh.
The road,
it was also uptown. It was an illusion.
It was an illusion.
Yeah. I walked backwards. I don't know. I don't know what happened.
I don't know. Anyhow, on that note, we're going to get out of here and go carry on with our day of excitement and fun. And
I thought you were going to say karaoke for a second.
Karaoke.
We're going to go karaoke.
We're not.
We're not. No, I'm not. I might take a nap, is what I might do.
But you've karaoke'd.
I have.
Have you ever karaoke'd sober?
No.
Thank
you for asking.
I've only karaoke'd sober.
Really?
Yeah. I don't drink.
Yeah, that's right. Gangster's Paradise. By Queen.
That does seem right. That you would sing Gangster's Paradise.
Little goth girl up there, 20 years old, rapping Gangster's Paradise.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
We gotta go.
Bye.
So we'll be here next week and every week until the end of time. For the rest of forever.
Yeah.
And if you would like to send us a message, send it at itwouldseemasthough@gmail.com. And like, share, subscribe. Find us on any podcasting app. Mm-hmm. And we come out every Wednesday.
That's all.
That's
Goodbye.
it.
I'm sick of it.
You're sick of it?
Sick of it.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
It would seem as though